Have you ever noticed how the Tenshinhan saga subtly marked the beginning of a new era for Dragon Ball, and just no one ever talks about it? When we last saw Goku on his childhood journey, he had just gotten to put his childhood baggage to rest. Goku, for the most part, is not someone who lets stuff bother him, so to see any type of trauma he had getting touched on is rare. Having finally gotten to say goodbye to Grandpa Gohan and let go of his attachment to the 4-star Dragon Ball, Goku is now a blank slate, masterless for the first time in his entire life. A lot of people don't understand how big of a deal this is, seeing Goku get stronger by his own hand and not guided by anyone else's principles. The beginning of the 22nd Tenkaichi Budokai is the first time we see how Goku has gotten stronger through his own training, and we take our first steps into the part of Dragon Ball where we see Goku start to become a man. Without further ado, hello everyone, my name is Rambles-on, and thank you for joining me when the series starts to get really good. The one, the only, Tenshinhan Saga. We start off this saga with some good old pre-9/11 humor. I know that in a world full of humanoid animals, certain accommodations would have to be made, but that's just a straight-up turtle. And they gave him a whole seat like he's a human. Whatever, I guess. Our gang reaches a familiar sight for sore eyes. The battle arena for the 21st Tenkaichi Budokai makes its return. On the topic of revisiting the Tenkaichi Budokai, the 22nd is an improvement over the 21st in almost every way. The 21st had a finale roster that was half nothing but randos, while in the 22nd, every finalist has an emotional connection to the main character in some way. Well, almost all of them. But we'll ramble on about that later. The 21st also had no overarching villain, with the only threat being that Goku might lose and have to wait for the next Tenkaichi Budokai to try again. The 22nd rectifies that by introducing us to the main threat right off the bat. This is the Crane Hermit School, and we're told that they're rivals to the Turtle Hermit School. The idea of there being multiple different disciplines of martial arts is interesting, and I would have loved to see more of it. In the anime, there was actually a filler segment during Goku's training in the wild that touched upon this, but only for a very brief moment, so we still know almost nothing about it. We aren't told what caused the bad blood between these two. Yes, I know that we see their adolescent years in filler, but we only talk canon when analyzing characters and their motives on this channel. But from dialogue exchanges later on, I think we can infer that the Crane Master views Roshi as weak for only using weak but safe moves like the Kamehameha, whereas the Crane School uses strong but high recoil moves like the Dodon Ray. This duality makes the Crane School and the Turtle School interesting foils for each other. And speaking of foils, walking right behind the Crane Hermit is Tenshinhan, or Tien depending on which flavor of translation you like. Fun fact, Tien appeared in chapter 113 and didn't get his name revealed until chapter 116, meaning that for like a full month, Japanese kids were probably calling Goku's rival for this arc the Three-Eyed Baldy or something like that. And here comes the man of the hour himself, now rocking a leopard skin pelt to make him seem like even more of a Tarzan type. And we're told he just circumnavigated the globe, including swimming for an entire half of the journey. And what's more, the way he frames it makes it seem like light work. In the manga, we never get to see what Goku did to train during this 3-year time skip, but it must have been radical. Goku at this point in the manga is 15 years old. We know that because he was 12 during the 21st Tenkaichi Budokai, and 3 years have passed. While 15 is certainly very young to be considered mature, as neither I nor anyone I knew had their lives sorted out by age 15, it hits different when you're by yourself. Sure, Goku lived alone on Mount Paozu for an unknown amount of time before Bulma found him. I've seen rough estimates that puts the amount of time between Gohan dying and Bulma showing up as about 2 years, but remember, Goku didn't think he was alone. He had the 4-star Dragon Ball, which provided him with just as much warmth and security as his grandpa. But after the Fortune Teller Baba arc, he's realized that Grandpa just kept the Dragon Ball as the fancy paperweight and lost his attachment to it, now just viewing it as another chunk of mineral. With no one to answer to, No Grandpa Gohan to teach him how to survive, no Master Roshi to show him how to get stronger, no Korin to give him insight. Goku had nothing to guide him on his path to get stronger other than his own moral standards. And it was that bit of knowledge that acted as the basis of my thesis for this video, which is that the Tenshinhan Saga acts as the beginning of a new era of Dragon Ball, where we see a more mature side of Goku that comes about as a result of Goku becoming a man. Also, shout out to this cute little panel in chapter 114. I love all the small little characters. Moving on to the fights, Yamcha and Krillin's preliminaries are used to contrast with Tenshinhan's. While Goku's Turtle Hermit classmates finish their fights in simple, yet effective moves, Tien decides to pull out some Kenshiro Fist of the North Star nonsense. While it might be slightly cliched, it does do a good job of establishing the differences between the Turtle Hermit School and the Crane Hermit School. The turtles are in it for the love of the game, while the cranes need to show off. When it's Goku's turn, we're told that Goku's opponent is a previous Tenkaichi Budokai winner. But as we the audience know, Tenkaichi Budokai winners have been fodder for the past several arcs, with Goku one-tapping one the last time he fought. Side tangent, did you guys know that this guy was the one who taught Oob the basics of martial arts? If Super ever goes past the end of Z, I think it would be cool to have Oob bust out the 8-arm fist. A guy can dream, can he? Anyway, pay attention to the way Goku takes out King Choppa. He jumps into the air to bait Choppa into attacking, then uses a gust of air to change trajectory, leaving his opponent wide open. It's this level of thinking ahead that we haven't seen yet from Goku. Most of the fights up until this point were just tit-for-tat styles of, you're going to do this, well I'm going to do this, with very little strategy. But it's thinking ahead like this that goes on to make Goku the formidable martial artist he is. Also, an air blast. It's the same way that Jackie Chun beat Yamcha in the first Tenkaichi Budokai. While it might not seem like it because of how goofy they are, Dragon Ball characters are extremely good at watching and taking notes. We continue on to the final 8, and Munch might just be the most American anime character in history. Now instead of having to pretend like we're invested in a stripper, a smelly guy, and a dinosaur, we have something to actually work with. There's our 4 main characters from the Turtle Hermit School, Tien and Xiaodi, Chi-Chi, who want to crush our main cast. This mysterious wolf guy, whom we're told has a grudge against Jackie Chun. It was this character that made me feel like we were supposed to learn more about Roshi. The conflict this arc was kicked off by Roshi's rivalry with a fellow martial artist, so clearly he has a past. And in the Fortune Teller Baba arc, when Bulma comments about Roshi's family, he dodges the question. It was this dude who made me think we were supposed to get a continuation of that story beat. But he turns out to just be a werewolf gag. Oh, I'm sorry. A were-man. My mistake. But given what's to come, I do feel like we got sufficient mileage out of Roshi as a character. And finally, there's... Who's this guy? Seriously, we were on track for a 10 out of 10 roster until this rando stepped in. It was understandable that half the cast had to be randos the first time around because the story had just started. We had no one else to fill the roster. Now we're over 100 chapters into this thing. This was the perfect chance to bring back any number of beloved characters. How about, oh I don't know, the kid who said he wanted to start training to become as strong as Goku? Could have had Appa pop in to show he'd been doing some training with Korin and Kenshiro's ancestor and have Goku say he's impressed. Or maybe had Nam return so that Goku could thrash him and show how much stronger he's gotten. The anime did this, but they just made him cannon fodder for Tien instead. If we really wanted to get out there, heck, have it be General Murasaki trying to avenge the Red Ribbon Army. There could be a gag where you think he's gotten stronger, only for it to be revealed he's using more lies and deception. There was even one perfectly good fighter left waiting in the wings in this very arc. The Crane Hermit himself. Why couldn't he have been entered in the tournament and gotten beat by Goku, making Tenshinhan start to question if he'd been steered in the right direction, given that his master with all his training got smoked by this random hillbilly doing whatever he felt like for the past 3 years. But no, instead we got this bozo. What makes matters even worse is that we're told he won 2 other high-profile tournaments on the same scale as the Tenkaichi Budokai, and is now looking to go for a trifecta. What are these tournaments? How does winning them make you important? Why does Goku never show interest in entering them? It's bad enough you had to show up uninvited, but you made a mess out of the lore in the process. I need to take a lap before this becomes a rant video. In my Fortune Teller Baba video, I talked about how a skilled writer will write the tournament arcs so that the tournament itself acts as an antagonist to the main character. We start to get some of that action here as the bad guys rig the matchups to pit our main characters against opponents with difficult skill sets to deal with. Yamcha against the most skilled fighter from the bad guy team, Balbi against Balbi, Master Roshi against someone we've established already has a grudge, and Goku is left as the wild card to be dealt with at the end. The anime did make one addition in this section that I felt like was a positive inclusion. In the manga, the entire Tenkaichi Budokai happened in one day, but in the anime, it was stretched over the course of various days, with there being several plots to kidnap Goku and sabotage his chances at the tournament, really stacking the odds against him. I'm all for the added stakes, and I think it could have benefited the original manga if they did something like this as well. So the fights are on, and I just want to draw attention to this excellent bit of detail with the announcer asking Goku if he needs a snack beforehand to avoid a repeat of last time. Not only is this bit of characterization why the announcer is the GOAT, but the thing is, Goku was shown already having a snack for this exact reason. It's small, but it really does show Goku is being prepared now instead of just constantly moaning about being hungry. Round 1 is Yamcha versus Tenshinhan, and these back and forths with them exchanging trash talk shows why Yamcha never fully completed his journey from zero to hero. He doesn't understand that real heroes don't need to brag about how they're going to win a fight. They just actually win the fight. Another character is going to come along and slowly learn that lesson for himself. Very, very slowly learn that lesson. I'm not being hyperbolic when I say that this fight is the tightest choreographed fight in all of original Dragon Ball, and a contender for the top 10 best fights in the series. That don't involve Goku. Let's not get too carried away now. Now seems like a good time to talk about the art. But first, I feel like I owe you, the audience, an apology. I haven't talked about the art a lot up until this point, and that's a shame, because I think there's a lot to be learned from the art of Dragon Ball. But I promise I wasn't doing it on purpose. I lack the vocabulary to express how Dragon Ball's art is good, but after doing my research, I think I can now properly articulate just what makes Dragon Ball's art great. Dragon Ball started serialization in 1984. Other stuff that was popping off around this time includes Akira, Hakuto no Ken, Kinnikuman, Urusei Yatsura, and Captain Tsubasa. All of those manga were about dudes that were either roided up beasts or slick cool guys. Well, except for Urusei Yatsura. That one was about alien chicks in tiger stripe bikinis, but that's neither here nor there. Dragon Ball was different though, and the art reflects that. Instead of being big enough to tear apart any threat, Goku was small and bouncy, and the panels have to flow to reflect that. Instead of being staged like scenes in a cool action movie, the composition of Dragon Ball follows the characters as they bounce around the environment and do these dramatic leaps in mid-air combat. And that aspect of the series forced Toriyama to adapt his paneling accordingly. One of the biggest contributing factors to Dragon Ball's success was Toriyama's subversive paneling. We get these super wonky and cool angles to see the fights from, and I believe that this is the secret ingredient that readers couldn't get from other manga that kept them coming back to Dragon Ball. But being small also visually gives Goku the aura of being an underdog. While the series whom Dragon Ball fought for magazine space with had these dudes who are huge towers of muscle, Goku is this unassuming dude who has the world towering over him. Up until now, most of the threats have not been too intimidating, with Pilaf, Oolong, Krillin, and even Master Roshi not having that many inches on Goku. But Tenshinhan is huge compared to him, even with his new growth spurt. The imagery was so effective, it continued to be used for the rest of the series. Up until it wasn't, but we're not there yet. What I believe Toriyama's true talent was the way he conveyed movement and high choreography. To compare, I went back and examined a few action-heavy chapters of Dr. Slump, a series that provided Toriyama with 18 volumes of practice so Dragon Ball could hit the ground running. And even if you don't like gag manga, Dr. Slump is still worth the read just so that you can see Toriyama's improvement. The famous poop emoji manga has a much less realistic and more chibi art style, so making the jump from that to a more human-like anatomy deserves praise on its own. But Toriyama manages to portray movement in individual segments, working as parts of a whole. But what do I mean by this? Well, let's examine this panel from the Yamcha vs Tenshinhan fight. There's a lot going on, so let me break it down. Tien raises his left arm to block a blow from Yamcha, so the speed lines on his hand are at a different angle from the ones on his shoulder, to show that while his shoulder is moving up, his hand is moving up and back from the impact of the blow. Likewise, Yamcha's arm is moving forward to attack, but instead of just drawing the speed lines moving forward, Toriyama angled them up to show his arm rising with the attack. It's not exactly brain surgery. Giving the character's limbs movement independent from the direction of the body captures so much more overall movement, and is part of what made Toriyama a genius of a mangaka. Besides that, we have hands. Hands. Most people can barely draw 2 hands, but Toriyama took it a step further to flex his anatomy skills by giving his characters 4 hands, 8 hands, more hands than you could ever know what to do with. And the last thing I want to geek out over are the explosions. This tournament arc has more Kamehamehas than any that came before it. All the key beams are drawn with no solid outlines, really making it feel like they ripped through space. And the explosions, ooh, these could not have been easy to draw. My personal favorite is the one right after the Super Doronpa at the beginning of Volume 11. Anyway, enough about the art, back to the fight. When I first read through Dragon Ball back in 2020, as a fan who started the series knowing relatively little about it, it was around this time I started worrying about Yamcha's role going forward. I thought his antics were kind of funny in the Pilaf saga, and I thought it was inspiring how he was the first overarching antagonist that Goku's charm worked to win over. But once Krillin was introduced, I knew it was over for him. Krillin simply does a far better job of being Goku's human counterpart. Not only does he have much more chemistry with Goku, and is easier to draw, but in the anime, he's voiced by a seiyuu who Toriyama handpicked. That's why I was fully anticipating Yamcha would fall into the role of the loser human who falls behind the gang and exists just to make Krillin look cooler. That's why I had the biggest smile on my face when Yamcha busted out the Kamehameha. I didn't ever expect Yamcha to learn ki control, especially back in early Dragon Ball when it was still touted as something humans had to train for decades to do. That's why even if he did kinda become this loser dude, hearing that he practiced in private to impress everyone still made it easy to respect him as a character, with a work ethic that rivals the other 2 Turtle Hermit alumni. So yeah, Yamcha loses and he loses bad. We've established in this series that jumping is bad because you can't guard while in the air, so for Yamcha to do that, then let his guard down on top of it was asking for trouble. He never does learn to stop letting his guard down. I don't think the average viewer understands the severity of breaking the bone Tien broke here. This isn't a cast in physical therapy for the next few months injury. This is a, you'll be lucky if you can ever walk again injury. This combined with the fact Tien says he would have killed Yamcha instead of paralyzing him if the rules would have allowed it, means that Tenshinhan better thank his lucky stars he's dealing with a more mature version of Goku, and not the Red Ribbon Army era Goku. Or else, well, he'd probably eviscerate Goku at that time with no issue power scaling wise. But you get the picture. The fact that Goku didn't just jump Tien here as payback for his friend is more evidence of how far Goku's come. He held on to the lesson in his encounter with Tao Pai Pai without not rushing in, and recognizes that biding his time and wiping that smirk off Tien's face in a tournament legal fight will be far more emotionally rewarding than getting revenge here. Up next is Jackie Chun against the Wolfman. Oh, I'm sorry, the Man-Wolf. Man-Wolf's fighting skills are nothing to write home about, with the only thing I found worthy to note is this pressure point freezing technique that Jackie Chun busts out. Where did that move go? Why didn't Goku make it another fine addition to his collection considering how effective it was? I sure can name a few occasions where it would have been handy to stick someone in place. It was kind of sweet to see Jackie Chun fix Man-Wolf after it was partially his fault that he became trapped in wolf form. I could see this being a response to the sentiment that the moon just didn't exist anymore, and fans were curious about how it affected the world. Something that would be a game changer in other series is just kind of brushed off in Dragon Ball. But I think that's part of Dragon Ball's charm. And I did like how towards the end of their match, Man-Wolf starts breaking tournament rules by using weapons and ignoring judgments by the ref, because he doesn't actually care about winning, just settling the score. It's always nice when a character just says screw the rules, I'm too teed off. Final thoughts on the Wolfman fight? It's funny how with this one gag match in an otherwise serious tournament inspired loads of fanfic. This one chapter from 40 years ago introducing the idea that humans had the latent potential to transform means it's not too late for good old Krilly, Yamchu, and Ben Tenshinhan. Seriously, go into any forum where someone asks what transformation they'd give the human characters to help them catch up with the Saiyans. And the answer, almost always close to the top, is to make them werewolves, like this is a bad Twilight fanfic. Up next is Krillin vs. Chaozu. And this fight is Krillin's most standout moment of original Dragon Ball. It was the first time he ever had main character energy. I'm not kidding that when I say that when Krillin isn't being used as gag fodder, he demonstrates just as much courage, work ethic, strategy, and willingness to see the best in people as Goku does. If Toei didn't have an anti-Krillin agenda that was further fed by Team 4-Star, thanks for that one, guys. Still love you though, you know I could never hate Dragon Ball Abridged. This fight would have cemented Krillin as Dragon Ball's certified deuteragonist based solely on the fact he was able to improvise a Kamehameha on the spot. Think about that. It'd be one thing if he was grinding in secret like Yamcha, but we're told this is the first time Krillin has ever attempted the Kamehameha. And not only does he succeed, but his second one is strong enough that he would have ringed out Shiatsu if he couldn't fly. Speaking of flying, this is probably where Goku saw it for the first time and pirated the ability with his little Saiyan cheat codes. And speaking of Goku, he let it slip that he killed Tao Pai Pai, who was the Crane Hermit's brother, and, whoa. When I read this for the first time, my mouth fell agape. I never thought Tao Pai Pai was going to drive the story after he exploded. And why should I? What did we ever learn about the dude? That he likes money and needs a new tailor? He was the generic evil bad guy trope, so once he went boom, I considered him out of sight, out of mind. This was the perfect plot twist that instantly bumped this arc from a 6 out of 10 to a 10 out of 10. Now back to Krillin, where Sun Tzu wants to krill him, and to make matters worse, he has the Dodonpa, the move that rang Goku's bell. The way Krillin overcomes the Chaz's paralysis is the perfect way to incorporate Master Roshi's training into their fighting style, and it highlights just how much the Crane School and the Turtle School differ. Master Roshi took care to round out the boys' training with schooling, which was probably far below the curriculum of kids their age, but these two don't exactly strike me as the next Jimmy Neutrons. While the Crane School only drilled in brute strength that becomes useless once the enemy finds out how to finesse their way around it. Goku got to show off a lot this time, so I'm glad Krillin got some time to show his brain skills too. But what remains to be seen is if there's truly brute force strong enough to knock out the opponent before they devise a counter strategy, and if that gamble is worth neglecting other aspects of your training. A question we'll have answered by the end of this arc. So with the cat out of the bag that Goku killed the man Tien looks up to like a father, he's now a Triclops on a mission. In my 21st Tenkaichi Budokai review, which you should totally check out by the way, I know I've plugged my channel a lot this video, but you should stop skipping classic Dragon Ball. I pointed out the similarities between Master Roshi's training and the training done by the main character Daniel LaRusso in the movie Karate Kid, which released around the same time. But the similarities don't end there. The second time around, events in the 22nd Tenkaichi Budokai play out very similar to the Karate Kid, with Tenshinhan practically being the same character as Johnny, Daniel's rival from the movie. Both have a natural gift for martial arts but are jerks about it. Both let a bad teacher get in their heads and drive them to do bad things. Both get an assist for their evil cronies who injure the main character to sabotage their fighting chances. And both begin their redemption arc after getting smoked. I bring up this comparison because I hope if I can show where their characters diverge, I can help you all understand Tien's motives and make his redemption make a bit more sense. While Johnny had a girlfriend he was trying to show off for, Tien had no one to show off for but himself. This discrepancy is what makes Master Roshi think Tien isn't too far gone. If he's not doing it to impress Tao Pai Pai or the Crane Hermit, only himself, he can just as easily stop doing it for himself. Master Roshi tries to convey this by forfeiting the fight. If he were fighting to impress Tien or his students, he could have seen the fight to its completion. But he doesn't, because he knows how strong he is, and he doesn't feel the need to prove it to anyone. Master Roshi vs. Tien is a thematically rich fight that starts Tenshinhan's redemption by putting the idea in his head that you don't have to constantly flaunt your strength by thrashing others to prove you're strong. You can just be strong. But on top of that, it's also another big step on Goku's journey as well. Roshi, after seeing how strong Goku has gotten, and that Krillin, Yamcha, and even Tenshinhan all learned his signature techniques without a day of training, accepts that he's no longer needed in the martial arts world, and quietly retires, leaving the future of the sport in the hands of Goku, Krillin, Yamcha, Tien, and I guess Chow Chow counts too, even though he's never taken a single on-screen win. This shows Goku that part of every martial artist's journey is to pass on what he's learned, completing the cycle from beginner to master. A loop that Goku has been trying to complete since the 90s, but unfortunately none of his students can pull their heads out of their ass. But that's a rant for a different day. In my opinion, this is an underrated L that Super took, which doesn't get hammered home enough. Roshi trying to right the wrongs of the past against King Piccolo should have been his last fight ever. Him grinding to the level where he can do this just makes me wonder why his geriatric wasn't out there preparing to defend Earth from the Saiyans, or heading to Namek to help protect a defenseless 5-year-old. But oh well, Super has an issue with leaving well enough alone. You thought I'd rambled on about this fight enough? Well, you're wrong, because I have a few more thoughts to give. Going into this tournament, it seemed like the byline would be that Tenshinhan would work his way through the Turtle Hermit School, beating the students one by one until Goku put a stop to his reign of terror. Sadly, there aren't enough matches for that to happen though, so Tien never got to fight Krillin. Tien busting out the Kamehameha just to prove he could is a meta way for Toriyama to say, look, see? This guy can do everything Krillin can but better. They've even got the same hair. Showing that Tien has more potential than Krillin eliminates the need for them to have a fight, because we know who's stronger anyway. Now we're done with this fight. Next up we have Goku and Krillin. This fight was probably cooked up as a fan pleaser. In the first few volumes of the manga, Toriyama used to use the extra pages in the back of the book to respond to fan mail, something he dropped almost immediately because, well, it's probably too difficult, I guess. Classic Toriyama. A fan requested that the last fight of the 21st Tenkaichi Budokai be Goku vs Krillin. Toriyama apologized, saying he already drew the fight to be Goku vs Jackie Chun. Don't get me wrong, that fight is a definitely must-have for both thematic reasons and power scaling reasons. But this fight is how Toriyama corrects history. I think this fight broke Krillin, and basically marked the end of Goku and Krillin's rivalry. Krillin is super underrated as one of Goku's rivals. The human trying to show off the power of the human spirit by rivaling an alien who gets stronger much faster than he does could be the plot of an entire manga if it wanted to. I swear, Krillin could have been top tier if Toriyama didn't get alien brain rot after Piccolo. I'll give it to Krillin though, he did not go down without a fight. He pulls out several smart moves, such as using the reflection of the sun off his bald head to temporarily stun Goku. Yes, you heard that right. He uses the solar flare before he learned the solar flare. It's no wonder the solar flare became old reliable. With his chrome dome, he's practically a human light bulb. But Krillin also finds himself stuck in midair at one point with no way to dodge Goku's attack. So he inflates himself with air like a balloon to slow his fall and throw off Goku's trajectory. Krillin really does have a flair for copying moves that rivals Goku. Clearly, he was also taking notes when he saw Jackie Chun use the gust of air to knock out Yamcha. Then Krillin goes in for the krill, grabbing Goku's tail to try and make him faint. But it doesn't work. Goku has trained his tail so that it's not his weakness anymore. This moment is big for reasons that people don't realize. I could see some being upset with this arc because we never got to see what Goku did during the first significant chunk of his life when he was out alone without his family and friends. There's no new Kaioken or Super Saiyan 3 to bust out, just Goku being able to smack people harder. But Goku overcoming his tail weakness was the very reason Master Roshi had to send him away. What's Roshi supposed to do for him? Roshi's never trained a tail before, he doesn't have a tail. So this moment where Goku fakes out Krillin is proof of his hard work over the past 3 years. And I was super excited when I saw this for the first time. It was like if Superman overcame his weakness to kryptonite by hitting the gym. The world's our oyster now. So Goku gets one over Krillin by turning into the Flash. I like this technique because it's an evolution of the afterimage technique, which Goku spammed a lot more than you remember. Seriously, go back and watch OG Dragon Ball again. He was basically an afterimage merchant. This move takes that move a step further by moving so quickly you leave no images behind. I'm probably alone in this opinion, but this is the star finger of Dragon Ball. A good idea for a move that was dropped before it could do anything cool. Imagine if this became a mainstay in Goku's skill set, and he just gets his cardio in during every speedster fight. That'd be epic. With Krillin ringed out, their rivalry comes to an end. Krillin will now forever walk in the Saiyan shadow. It's sad to see their dynamic come to an end, but it was very needed for Goku to continue growing as a character. Toriyama's original dynamic for them was to have Goku blast his way through the competition with brute force, while Krillin made up for his lack of might with his intelligence. However, for Goku to grow both as a fighter and a character, he needed to learn to strategize so he could start taking on stronger opponents. Because of that, old Krillin didn't stand a chance only having brains against a fighter that had both brains and brawn. And speaking of brawn, the next fight is the one everyone's been waiting for. The aesthetics of Tenshinhan vs Goku paint the exact picture you need to understand everything about this fight. Tien is a big hulking dude covered in muscle, while Goku is probably the shortest 15-year-old in existence. Goku wears his turtle hermit gi into battle, paying homage to his teacher and fellow students with the symbol on his back, while Tien wears no such symbols, showing he answers to himself and only himself. To understand Tenshinhan's headspace here, you have to remember, there was only 2 story arcs ago when Goku saw a friend of his die, and he stopped at nothing, fighting tooth and claw to avenge him. Goku is to Tien right now what the Red Ribbon Army was to Goku, someone to exact revenge upon. With him so hot under the collar, the only reason I think Tien could be saved was because of this slight Freudian slip during the Goku and Krillin clash. Here, Tien says that it's his dream to become the world's greatest assassin, just like Tao Pai Pai. But here's the thing, what does it even mean to become the world's greatest assassin? In theory, an assassin's top priority should be killing the target. Nothing more, nothing less. As long as the target ends up dead, the job is done. That can mean anything from besting them in combat, to dropping a banana peel on their path and letting gravity do the rest. Strength is irrelevant compared to the importance of getting the job done. In fact, being a master martial artist who slays all his targets in hand-to-hand combat would be a detriment to being an assassin because it would draw more attention to you and make it harder to get close to your target. It was highly implied Tenshinhan was adopted by mercenary Tao and the Crane Hermit as a kid, and being groomed into becoming the next leader of the Crane School as a result. You probably had heard of Tao's missions and thought they were cool, wanting to become a big tough guy like Tao, and becoming an assassin was the way to make that happen. But he had it backwards. Tao wasn't strong because he was an assassin. He was a strong dude that happened to be an assassin by trade. Once he gets stomped by Goku, he'll realize the path of the assassin isn't the one that leads to being the strongest, and he'll abandon this path in favor of the one walked by Goku, the one of training and personal growth. But that's getting ahead of ourselves. For now, the 2 rivals clash, one representing martial arts as a way of improving yourself, and one representing martial arts as a way of dominating others. And I hate to break it to you all, but hard Tien edits are not canon. In fact, Goku styles on Tien this entire fight. He takes every blow Tien gives him, including the volleyball technique. If I had to see this, you all do too. I hope it's in your dreams tonight. And he gets nothing more than a busted lip.
All that for a drop of blood.
Goku even pulls a, "I guess we're getting serious," and starts putting his back into his attacks, demolishing Tien. The only reason Tien starts whittling HP off of Goku's health bar is through cheap shots like kicking Goku when his back is turned to return Roshi's glasses. Speaking of the glasses, this was a masterclass of foreshadowing. Toriyama straight cooked when he took something as small as a bit of flair for a character design from 2 story arcs ago and turned it into an actual story beat. In addition, Goku seeing a move and instantly devising a way to counter it shows the level he's operating at now. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Goku has a single-digit IQ, but when he's in combat, 2 zeros appear behind it. What was I doing? Oh yeah, hating on Tien. This is the only reason this match was close. If it weren't for this, Goku would have crushed Tien like any other villain of the week. Don't believe me? Tien never keeps up with Goku after he goes serious mode. The only thing that comes close is the 4 witches, which Goku instantly reverses after downloading yet another move. Someone needs to serve this Saiyan a cease and desist with how much bread he's making off other people's dough. Anyways, let's talk about the heel face turn. At this point, Tien is fighting desperately to prove the path he's walked is the correct one. That all those years of assassin training was worth it. That all the blood he shed was a necessary sacrifice to become the strongest. Zooey Mama over here helping Tien cheat runs in direct opposition with that goal. If he wins now, He can't claim that walking the path of the assassin made him the strongest. Just the strongest, as long as he has his little buddy waiting around for an assist. So he refuses the cheat help, even if it means turning his back on the very person who sent him down this path. But after all, you can be surrounded by supportive people who cheer you on every step of the way, but only you have the ability to make yourself continue forward. So Tien busts out the last tool in his bag to try to prove the path of the assassin is better than the path of the dumb country hick with ADHD. The Kiko Ho, or the Tri-Beam if you don't know your shapes. He's so passionate about proving his way of life isn't wrong, he doesn't care if he drains his ki reserves to the point where he dies as long as he proves his point. And I have to say, I love the creative way in which Goku counters the Kiko Ho. Oh, it's gonna destroy the entire ground, and I just won't be on the ground. It's such a simple counter, and yet it's the perfect counter for someone like Goku to use. The only problem is, now they're both in the midair, and now they're falling. I swear Goku would not have lost this if the file size for Tien's floating move wasn't so big and Goku could have downloaded it faster. But we all know what happens. Despite how much of a BS finisher this was to an otherwise gas tournament, I still feel like it was the right choice from a writing perspective. And not just because from a meta viewpoint the series needed to go on so it could keep making Toriyama and Shueisha money, but because we as the audience needed one last test of Goku's maturity. Going back to my thesis statement, this arc was all about showing Goku, and the rest of the cast by proxy, taking the first step towards becoming men. If you don't believe me, just compare Goku's behavior at the 21st Tenkaichi Budokai to the 22nd. His first time around, he was flippant with the announcer and the audience, overslept almost getting him disqualified, and straight up cheated in his first fight by accepting outside help. But this time, he preps for his matches accordingly, and acts in a much more dignified manner. And when he's the victim of the tournament being rigged against him, he doesn't call foul and demand the ref stop the match. He considers it extra adversity he'll use to make himself stronger, and when he gets robbed of the victory he worked so hard to get, instead of getting nasty, he congratulates the winner and vows he'll get him next time. This is such a far cry from the Goku that used to whine non-stop about his stomach rumbling and made excuses to Korin when he lost, that the two are nearly unrecognizable. And I do believe it's because Goku's first time training by himself made him come to the realization that everyone in the real world must come to at some point. Once you surpass your teacher and your role models, there's no one left to streamline your growth and help you develop your talents. How you continue to improve is up to you to figure out, because your days with someone coming along to get you out of ruts are over. Even if someone were to come along and rudely shove you back into a rut, that doesn't guarantee someone will feel the need to make the situation right and get you out of said rut. You and only you have the ability to get yourself out of the rut if you want to stay rutless for the rest of your life. In a similar way to how Tien pulled himself out of his own rut. Tien is perhaps the biggest display of maturity this entire arc. He started off as someone who thought the only way he could boost himself up was by pushing others down. I think everyone can relate to getting tunnel vision at some point, and being so caught up in the method you forget the final goal. He has every other Shonen Jump character's goal of being the strongest, but once he sees there's a better way, he remains open to change despite still trying to maintain his tough guy persona. It's this open-mindedness that makes the difference between being misguided and being a full-blown villain. Cell, Frieza, and a certain receding hairline prince with Little Saiyan syndrome didn't have this open-mindedness when we meet them, and that's why they were full-blown evil. But once Goku smacks Tien around enough to show him his way of training is more efficient, Tien commits to getting stronger, not through dominating others, but through self-improvement. We also see this theme carried by the other characters. Master Roshi retiring because he has nothing left to teach the gang makes him a character who has completed his arc. Well, that's what I would say, but we all know he still has some baggage to resolve. It's also kind of sad it had to happen in the same arc where Roshi retires, but I think this is where the seed was planted in Yamcha and Krillin's heads that they will never catch Goku, no matter how hard they train. And that's an important part of maturing too. They say comparison is the theft of joy, so the next step for these two was to stop trying to rival Goku and focus on their own growth. Even though they both decided to retire from martial arts and only show up during all-hands-on-deck situations, they spent their martial arts careers working towards goals that fit with their personal standard, and no one else's. The Chaz was there, I guess. He was a character who did things. I guess he had his own little realization the Crane Hermit wasn't a good dude, but I mean, he's basically one of Tien's accessories, so I don't think I can go full English teacher on him. Okay, we've gone over all the positives in this arc, so now we have to talk about a touchy subject. Ready your tomatoes, because I know I'm about to catch some hate for this. Tenshinhan is a canon filler villain. I know, don't hit send on that angry comment right now, just hear me out. Also, spoiler alert for JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. When Hikohiro Araki was writing JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, he always said he planned for the villain Dio to make his return in another arc, but thought bringing him back right after his fake-out death would cheapen the impact. So he created the Pillar Man as antagonist to break up Dio's arcs, and Joseph as the protagonist to fight against them. Tenshinhan in the entire arc is that, but for Dragon Ball. We needed something so the story didn't go straight from one Dragon Ball search to another right after the last one. But Goku couldn't yet accomplish his goal of original Dragon Ball, which was becoming the strongest under the heavens. Hence, he needed a generic evil bad guy to fight against, and the truck had to happen. Don't believe me? I'm about to crush every Tien fan's soul right now. He does nothing for the rest of the story. He didn't contribute during the search for the Dragon Balls. He gets knocked out before he can fight old Demon King Piccolo by Roshi's anti-ki spray. Where'd that go, by the way? That seems like it could have been helpful. He breaks the Mafuba practicing, meaning they can't seal young Demon King Piccolo. He gets soloed by Drum, gets snacked by Goku no diff at the 23rd Tenkaichi Budokai. He was nowhere to be seen while Gohan was being babysat by creepy Uncle Raditz. Failed to even scratch Nappa during the invasion, and does nothing but pose for group shots for every arc after that. At the current point in Super, they've even stopped inviting him to all-hands-on-deck situations. Heck, even Krillin struggles to get an invite now, so that's not surprising. The only time I can think of that he made a difference was saving Goku from young Demon King Piccolo's Ki Blast using the crane hover technique. So if we rewrite that one scene, we could remove Tien from the story completely, and there'd be no change to how the story plays out. Don't give me this, and don't give me this. Cell became perfect anyway, Buu absorbed Gohan anyway. He's done nothing but hold off Faceless Spotter and Super. I don't care about hard fan edits. Dude used to kill people for training, but his roast game is more pathetic than his win-loss rate. He is a bum, he always was a bum, and he will always be a bum. Look, I don't say this because I hate Tien. Tien was actually one of my favorites. I think he is by far the most talented of the entire Z Warriors at learning and applying new techniques. And I think he has the most expansive and unique moveset of any character in the series. But it's just that Toriyama didn't have plans for the poor guy past this one arc. Tien fans have been sustaining themselves on this one little crumb of a fight in the Tournament of Power for 7 years. At the bare minimum, we needed a couple of fights against minor villains in the Cell and Buu arcs. Obviously, they shouldn't have been throwing hands with Goku and Vegeta-level opponents. But at the very least, helping thin out the herd a bit so Goku can take on the main guy without having to worry about getting worn down by lesser villains. A lot of people think the Moro arc was a step in the right direction towards this, but even there, he, Yamcha, and Xiao Main had Zyugi 3 against 1 and still needed Goku to step in. I swear we are never beating the Goku time allegations. I will commend Toriyama on one thing when making Tenshinhan. He crushed it in the character design department. As you might know, Tien is a composite character of Erlang Shen and Nezha, both from Journey to the West. They inspired most of the mystical techniques he uses and gave it this really nice bit of flair that set him apart from the average human fighter in Dragon Ball. It really helped hype him up as this type of enlightened martial artist dude who's tapped into his body to gain unnatural levels of strength. The Journey to the West aesthetics of this series have grown on me so much while I was making these videos, I'm gonna miss them when we switch to Superman. So there you have it. The 22nd Tenkaichi Budokai was a huge step up from the 21st in almost every way. Goku has already taken the first steps towards leaving his childhood behind and becoming a man, and the next generation is in full swing. When you ask people when Dragon Ball gets good, they'll probably say Piccolo, but the second most popular answer is probably right here. It's crazy to me to think this chapter started at chapter 113, and by that time, 99% of all manga would have been wrapping up. But for Dragon Ball, we were just entering a world of peak. But seriously though, about the idea that the Tenshinhan Saga is where it gets good, I hope this review series has helped you realize there are no parts in Dragon Ball that aren't, quote, good, unquote. No matter which arcs you like and dislike, the character motives and writing decisions are always worth reading into. And I can't wait to start reading the next arc in line after this. Until then, I've been Rambles-on. Don't forget to work hard, study well, and eat and sleep plenty. Later. Between the van that cost Goku the win in this tournament and the car that ghosted Yusuke, maybe the real antagonist of classic shonen was safe driving.